Most money habits that keep you broke in your 20s don't look irresponsible. They look completely normal. Some of them even look responsible. So I'm breaking down 7 of those habits, what they're actually costing you, and the exact move that I'd make instead. And I am not immune to these. Habit number 1 is something that I still catch myself doing even after building a $500,000 net worth by 28, which wasn't built from a giant salary or one lucky investment. It came from consistently doing the boring basics and avoiding habits like these, so let's get into it. Habit number 1 is buying things that you don't need to impress people that you don't even like, which you've probably heard that before. But that is only half of this habit. The same need to look successful can also make you turn down the side hustle, the cheaper car, the roommate, or even the job that looks beneath you on paper, all because you're worried about what somebody else might think. One side makes you spend money that you shouldn't, and the other stops you from making or saving money that you could. The same habit, but costing you on both ends. And here's the part that nobody wants to hear. Sometimes getting ahead in your 20s means being willing to look less successful for a few years while you actually build wealth. And I'll be honest, I still catch myself doing this. I am chronically online. I see people buying nicer cars, taking better trips, and upgrading everything. And then I catch myself thinking, Dave, you have the money, should you be doing this too? But having enough money to buy something doesn't automatically mean that it aligns with my long-term goals. I learned the other side of this habit in college. While a lot of my friends were getting traditional internships, I was buying and reselling used lawnmowers to help pay for school. I was hauling around dirty lawnmowers, it wasn't glamorous or cool, and I wasn't always excited to explain it to my classmates who seemed to be doing much better things. But it made good money, so I kept going, even though that it had that stigma. And thankfully, I didn't let that stigma pull me off course. When job interviews finally came around, employers were actually more interested in the lawnmower business than almost anything else on my resume, because that non-traditional path got me non-traditional results. The biggest one being, it helped me graduate debt-free, which is not something that a lot of my classmates could say. So, here's your first move. Think about the last expensive thing you bought and ask yourself, would I still have bought this if nobody else could ever see it? Then think about an opportunity that you may have dismissed because it didn't look impressive enough, and if other people's opinions drove either of those decisions, this habit may be costing you. And this isn't about feeling guilty for wanting nicer things. Nice things are fine. The question is whether you're buying them because they fit your life and your goals, or because you're trying to prove something to your parents, your friends, or strangers online. Because once comparison gets a vote in your financial life, almost any bad financial decision becomes easy to justify. And if you want to get out of the toxic online comparison game and be part of a community focused on building real wealth, go ahead and subscribe and stick around for the next 6, because avoiding habits like these has been a huge part of how I built my own wealth. Now, habit number 1 is about the money that you spend to be seen, but habit number 2 is the opposite problem. It's the money that you never put to work at all, and it's the one that I hear about more than anything else. Habit number 2 is waiting until you earn more to start investing, and I hear some version of this all of the time. I'll start investing when I get my next raise, when I have more money, when I understand everything, but that waiting has a price, and most people have never actually run the numbers. Let's say you start investing $100 a month at 22, assuming an average rate of return of 10% a year, which is an assumption, not a guarantee. By 65, you would have around $857,000. But now, let's say you wait until 32, but try to make up for it by investing twice as much to make up for the lost time. Instead of $100 a month, you invest $200 a month, and using the same assumed return, the same finish line, by 65, you'd have around $618,000. And here's the part that I really want you to understand. The person who started at 22 contributed a total of $51,600. The person who waited until 32 contributed $79,200. So the person who waited and invested nearly $28,000 more ended up with almost $240,000 less, which is why starting small beats waiting until you can start big. And you don't need to understand every part of investing before you begin. You just need to understand enough to to take the next step. And real quick, if your head is spinning trying to figure out what the next step should be, a budget, emergency savings, paying off debt, or investing, I get it. And that is exactly why I created my free wealth building blocks guide. It lays out the order that most people should take step by step and includes my zero-based budget template, debt payoff calculator, and net worth tracker all in one Google Sheet. It is completely free and I've linked it below. Now, habit number 2 is about waiting to start building wealth. But what happens when you're earning more every year and somehow still have nothing to show for it? That brings us to habit number 3. Habit 3, letting every raise get absorbed before you see it. You get a raise, then 3 months later, you're looking at your bank account wondering where that extra money went. Your apartment got a little nicer, you added a few subscriptions, you started eating out more. There wasn't one huge purchase, everything else just got slightly more expensive. That is lifestyle creep. As your income goes up, your spending quietly rises with it. Earning more doesn't automatically mean that you're wealthier if your spending increases just as quickly. You then just become a higher income version of the same financial situation. So here's the rule that I use whenever my income increases. Half of the increase goes towards investing, the other half can improve my life. So if my take-home pay increases by $500 a month, I can enjoy an extra $250, but the other $250 gets automatically invested, and 50% isn't some magic number. I use it because I know it's a rule that I'll actually stick to. You worked hard for your raise, so as long as your financial priorities are handled, enjoy some of it, just don't let all of it go to lifestyle creep. The key is deciding where that money will go before the big check arrives, because once you get used to spending it, redirecting it later will feel like taking a pay cut. So before your next raise, decide what percentage you'll save or invest and automate it as soon as that raise hits. Now, the first 3 habits can quietly happen without ever feeling reckless, but habit number 4 is different. It's the one that I expect to catch some heat for, but I'm okay with that because this is one of the fastest growing financial problems today. Habit 4, treating sports betting like harmless entertainment. And look, I know this one is going to make some people mad, but my advice is simple. Do not do it, because nobody thinks that $20 on a game is the reason that they're not getting ahead financially. It's just a parlay with your friends. It makes the game more fun, and it doesn't feel like a real expense, but that's exactly what makes it dangerous. The problem usually isn't one massive bet, it's the frequency. $20 here, $20 there can quietly become a real monthly expense, but it never feels like one because it doesn't leave your account all at once. And there's actual research showing what this can do to people's finances. Researchers at the National Bureau of Economic Research looked at what happened to household finances after states legalized online sports betting. They found that deposits into brokerage investment accounts dropped by nearly 14%, and for every dollar that people put into sports betting, net investments fell by roughly $2. So that money isn't just coming out of the entertainment budget, it's coming out of people's future. The researchers also found more credit card debt, less available credit, and more people overdrawing their bank accounts. And the effect was even worse for frequent bettors. So no, I don't recommend setting aside a responsible amount to gamble every month. The odds are literally designed for you to lose over time, and I think that there are far better ways to spend or invest that money. But if you insist on doing it anyway, any money that you put towards sports betting needs to come out of your entertainment budget or some other enjoyable spending. Not your emergency fund, not your investing, not your future. And here's what I would do before placing that next bet. Open the app and look at your activity from the past 12 months. Calculate your actual net loss, not just how much you deposited or the total amount that you wagered. How much money did you put in compared to how much money did you actually walk away with? Most people have never run that number, and I'm willing to bet that the loss is higher than you think. And once you see that real number, ask yourself, what else could I have done with that money? And if seeing that number is enough to make you walk away, withdraw whatever money you have left, delete the app, and never look back. Habit number 5 is living without an emergency fund, because when you don't have cash set aside, a normal, unexpected expense can create years of financial fallout. Let's say your car suddenly needs a $1,200 repair. You don't have the cash, so you put it on a credit card, charging 22% interest, and pay $50 a month towards it. That $1,200 repair would take you around 32 months to pay off and cost you nearly $400 in interest. So you're still paying for that alternator almost 3 years later after it broke, and that's just one unexpected expense. If another one hits before you paid that off first, the balance starts stacking, and that is how normal life events can quietly turn into a cycle of debt. It's not always that someone is irresponsible with money, they just never built the buffer that keeps an emergency from becoming a balance. Now there's another mistake that people make with their emergency fund. They save the money, but they leave it sitting in a checking account or traditional savings account earning almost nothing. And your emergency fund needs to be safe and easy to access, but if it's going to sit there waiting for an emergency, it might as well earn a competitive return while it waits. And that is exactly why I keep mine in a high yield savings account, so it actually earns me something. But overall, here's how I'd prioritize this. First, build a starter emergency fund so that one unexpected expense doesn't immediately send you back into debt. For this, I'd aim for roughly 1 month of expenses, and then, if you have high interest debt, focus on paying that off, and once that's handled, build your emergency fund to around 3 to 6 months of expenses, and potentially more if you're self-employed or your income is unpredictable. And if you're looking for a high-yield savings account to store your emergency fund, you can scan the QR code on screen or use the link below. There you'll find the account that I personally use and a breakdown of several other top options. To note, some of these are affiliate links, which means I may earn a commission, but that's at no additional cost to you. Your emergency fund protects the money you've already earned, but habit number 6 may be the fastest way to put more money into your pocket without working more hours or cutting another expense. Habit number 6 is never negotiating. Most people accept the first offer that they're given, the first salary, the first insurance rate, the first quote, the first bill, and over time, that can cost you thousands of dollars. When I was offered a job paying $80,000, I had one very uncomfortable conversation that lasted maybe 5 minutes, but because of that conversation, I walked away making $85,000. That was an extra $5,000 a year, and it didn't only benefit me that first year, every raise after was calculated from that higher starting salary. So that one conversation increased what I earned for the entire rest of my time at that company. Negotiating works on the expense side too. I've negotiated the price of my vehicle, my internet bill, and even orthodontics. For my orthodontics, I was originally quoted $5,500, and instead of immediately accepting it, I actually went to 4 different consultations, got the x-rays, and compared the estimates. And because of that, I ended up paying just $3,500. That was $2,000 saved for a few afternoons of my time. And that is why negotiating may be some of the fastest money you'll ever make. You're not working extra hours and you're not cutting an expense. You're simply being willing to ask a question that most people are too uncomfortable to ask. So here's your move. Pick one recurring bill this week, just one, your internet, your phone, your insurance, and then call and ask what they can do for you. Worst case, they say no, and best case, you actually lower your bill. Now that's habit number 6, and I think most people can agree that never negotiating is a mistake, but habit number 7 is different because this is one that people will actually congratulate you for, even though it can greatly hinder your wealth building. Habit 7 is buying a brand new car. When you buy one, everybody congratulates you. Your family is proud, your friends want a picture, and you probably feel like you made it. But in reality, you actually bought a depreciating asset that's attached to a payment that can follow you for up to 6 years. And right now, the average new car payment is now north of $700 a month. That is more than $8,000 a year going towards something that can lose roughly half its value within the first 5 years. In contrast, my car, I drive a 2013 Ford Escape with around 280,000 miles on it. On a good day, it might be worth $2,000, but That $2,000 car is one of the biggest reasons that I've been able to invest as much of my income as I have. It wasn't a high salary, it wasn't a lucky investment, it wasn't some genius stock pick, it was just not having a $700 car payment for most of my 20s. Now I say all that, but I need to be honest with you about this one, especially because it ties directly back to habit number 1. There are absolutely moments when I look at what I put into my 401k, Roth IRA, HSA, and taxable brokerage and think, what if I just backed off for a year and bought something nicer? I could. The money is there, and that's the tension, that's the sacrifice. But then I remember, I'm not driving a $2,000 car because I'm broke, I'm driving it because I respect my future. The difference between a $700 payment and a paid off car is not just $700 a month. If you invest that $700 every month for 10 years, using that same 10% assumption from earlier, it could grow to more than $140,000. And that, my friends, is the actual trade. And no one is going to frame it that way when you're standing at the dealership. So for cars, my philosophy is very boring. Buy a reliable used car, avoid financing if you can, and drive it for as long as you possibly can. But the real reason why I saved this one for last is because habit number 7 is really habit number 1 in disguise. People will congratulate you for the new car because almost everything that we use to measure wealth is something that other people can see. The car, the house, the clothes, the trips. Well, almost nobody will congratulate you for maxing out your Roth IRA because that kind of wealth is invisible. The optics, they are not there. But remember, while one of these things makes you look wealthy, the other will actually help you build wealth. And speaking from experience, some of the wealthiest people that I know don't look wealthy at all. So here's all 7 for you to screenshot. And after you do that, I want you to pick one habit that hit you the hardest and then take one step to fix it this week. And if you only remember one thing from this video, let it be this. Number 1, stop letting people who aren't paying your bills vote on your budget. And now, drop a comment with what habit you plan to work on first. I read those comments and they help me decide what to make next. And if you want the full order for budgeting, saving, paying off debt, and investing, grab my free wealth building blocks guide in the description and then click the video on your screen because I'll show you exactly where the money you save should go instead. I'll see you there.